The mid-afternoon sun beat down on the peaceful suburban neighborhood as Karen Woodson marched across her manicured lawn, a scowl etched on her face. Gripping a can of pepper spray, she zeroed in on the unsuspecting figure making its way down the sidewalk, a service dog and its owner. "That mutt is not welcome here," Karen hollered, her shrill voice piercing the tranquil air. She advanced menacingly, her finger poised on the trigger of the canister. Startled, the service dog's owner, Emily, instinctively moved to shield her loyal companion. "Ma'am, this is a certified service animal. It's against the law to interfere with—" Karen cut her off with a venomous glare. "I don't care what the law says. That thing is disrupting the peace of our community." Without warning, she unleashed a stream of searing pepper spray directly into the dog's face. The poor animal let out a yelp of pain and panic, recoiling from the assault. Emily watched in horror as her beloved service dog collapsed, whimpering and disoriented. Rage and desperation flared within her. "How dare you!" she shouted, rushing to the dog's side. "You just violated federal law. I'm calling the police." Karen sneered, unperturbed. "Go ahead, call them. This is my neighborhood, and I won't have some filthy animal roaming around, making a mess of things." She turned on her heel and stormed back toward her pristine home, leaving Emily cradling the incapacitated dog. Trembling with anger and concern, Emily fumbled for her phone, her fingers flying across the screen as she dialed 911. "Yes, hello? I need the police immediately. My service dog was just pepper sprayed by my neighbor. She's in clear violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act." The operator's voice crackled with urgency. "Understood, ma'am. We've dispatched officers to your location. Please remain calm and provide any additional details you can." Emily took a deep, shuddering breath, her gaze fixed on her whimpering companion. "Just hurry, please. My dog needs medical attention." As the minutes ticked by, the sound of sirens grew steadily louder, signaling the approach of the responding officers. Emily's heart raced, a mix of relief and trepidation coursing through her. She knew the law was on her side, but the sheer audacity of Karen's actions had left her shaken. The police vehicles pulled up, and two officers quickly approached, their expressions grim. "Ma'am, we got a call about a service dog being attacked. Can you tell us what happened?" Emily recounted the incident with trembling words, her voice laced with fury and disbelief. "That woman, Karen Woodson, she just came out and sprayed my dog in the face with pepper spray. It's a clear violation of federal law." The officers exchanged a somber glance, their faces hardening with resolve. "All right, ma'am. We'll need to speak with Mrs. Woodson and get a statement. In the meantime, we'll get your dog the medical attention it needs." As the officers moved swiftly toward Karen's house, Emily's grip tightened around her dog's collar, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. She knew this was far from over. Moments later, the officers approached Karen's front door, their uniforms crisp and their expressions stern. One of them, Officer Daniels, knocked firmly, his voice projecting a clear authority. "Mrs. Woodson, this is the police. We need to speak with you regarding an incident involving a service dog." Inside, Karen bristled with indignation, her fingers clenching the doorknob. "I'm not saying another word without my lawyer present," she spat, her eyes narrowing. Officer Daniels exchanged a glance with his partner, Officer Sanchez, before continuing. "Ma'am, we have a witness who claims you pepper sprayed a certified service animal. That's a violation of federal law. We need you to come with us to the station and provide a statement." Karen's lips curled into a sneer. That filthy mutt was disrupting the peace of our neighborhood. I had every right to protect my property and my community. She made no move to comply with the officer's request. Sensing the growing tension, Officer Sanchez stepped forward, his tone diplomatic yet firm. "Mrs. Woodson, I understand you have concerns, but attacking a service animal is a serious offense. For everyone's safety, We need you to come with us voluntarily. Resisting arrest will only make this situation worse." Karen's eyes darted between the two officers, her jaw set in defiance. "I'm not going anywhere. This is my home, and I won't be bullied by the likes of you." She slammed the door in their faces, leaving the officers with no choice but to take decisive action. Exchanging a nod, the officers moved to the side of the house, positioning themselves at the rear entrance. Officer Daniels raised his voice, projecting a clear warning. "Mrs. Woodson, this is your last chance. Open the door and come with us, or we will be forced to enter and place you under arrest." Silence hung in the air for a moment, then the sound of the door creaking open reached their ears. Karen emerged, her face twisted in a mask of fury, her hands clenched at her sides. "You have no right to do this," she shrieked, her voice carrying across the neighborhood. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for assault and violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act," Officer Sanchez stated calmly, moving to secure Karen's wrists with handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." As Karen was led away, her shrill protests echoing through the streets, Emily watched from the sidewalk, her service dog now resting comfortably thanks to the quick actions of the responding officers. A sense of relief and vindication washed over her, but she knew the battle was far from over. Back at the police station, Karen sat fuming in the interrogation room, her hands clenched in her lap. She refused to answer any questions, glaring defiantly at the two officers seated across from her. Officer Daniels sighed, his patience wearing thin. "Mrs. Woodson, we have a clear-cut case against you. Assaulting a service animal is a federal offense, and we have a witness who can attest to your actions. The best thing you can do now is cooperate and provide your side of the story." Karen's lips curled into a sneer. "I don't have to say a word. This is an outrage. That dog was trespassing on my property and disrupting the peace of our neighborhood. I had every right to defend my home." Officer Sanchez shook his head, his expression grave. "That's simply not true, ma'am. Service animals are protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and they have the legal right to accompany their owners in public spaces. Your actions were a clear violation of federal law." "I don't care about your stupid laws." Karen spat, her face flushed with anger. "That mutt had no business being here, and I'm not going to be punished for protecting my community." Daniels leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Ma'am, you're looking at serious charges, including assault and interfering with a service animal. If you continue to refuse to cooperate, we'll have no choice but to proceed with a full investigation and prosecution." Karen's bravado faltered momentarily, a glimmer of uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "You can't do that. I'm a respected member of this community. You have no right to treat me like a common criminal." "The law applies to everyone, Mrs. Woodson," Sanchez interjected firmly. "Your status in the community doesn't exempt you from following the rules. Now we're giving you one last chance to provide a statement and explain your actions." Seething with frustration, Karen reluctantly began to recount the incident, her words dripping with resentment. "That woman and her dog were trespassing on my property. They were disrupting the peace and making a nuisance of themselves. I had no choice but to defend my home and my neighborhood." Daniels jotted down her statement, his brow furrowed in concentration. "And you're saying you had no idea the dog was a certified service animal?" Karen scoffed, her eyes narrowing. "Of course I knew, but that doesn't change the fact that it was causing a disturbance. I had every right to remove it from my neighborhood." Sanchez shook his head, his expression grim. "I'm afraid that's not how the law works, Mrs. Woodson. You've admitted to intentionally assaulting a service animal, which is a federal offense. We have no choice but to proceed with formal charges." As the officers stood to leave the room, Karen's face contorted with rage. "This isn't over. I'll fight this all the way to the top. You'll see, I'm not going down without a fight." While Karen stewed in the interrogation room, Emily anxiously paced the waiting area of the police station, her service dog by her side. The poor animal had recovered from the pepper spray assault, but Emily's nerves were still frayed. As Officer Daniels emerged from the back, Emily rushed over to him, her eyes wide with concern. "How did it go? What's going to happen to that woman?" Daniels offered a sympathetic nod. "Mrs. Woodson has been uncooperative, but we've managed to get a statement from her. Based on the evidence, we're moving forward with formal charges for assault and violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act." Emily's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank goodness. I was so worried she might try to get away with it. This can't be the first time she's caused trouble in the neighborhood." Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Unfortunately, it seems Mrs. Woodson has a history of conflicts with her neighbors. We've had a few previous calls about her, but nothing quite this serious." "Well, she deserves everything that's coming to her," Emily said, her voice hardening with conviction. "That poor dog did nothing wrong, and she had no right to attack him like that. I hope she gets the maximum penalty. We'll be doing everything in our power to ensure she's held accountable," Daniels assured her. "In the meantime, I'd recommend you consult with a lawyer to explore your options for civil action as well. This was a clear violation of your rights and your dog's rights." Emily nodded, her mind already racing with the next steps. "I'll do that. I just want to make sure this never happens to anyone else. Karen Woodson needs to learn that she can't just bully people and get away with it." "I couldn't agree more," Daniel said, placing a reassuring hand on Emily's shoulder. "We'll keep you updated on the progress of the case. And please, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any other concerns or questions." As Daniels departed, Emily turned to her service dog, offering a gentle scratch behind the ears. "Don't worry, buddy. We're going to make sure that horrible woman pays for what she did to you." She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the legal battle to come. Little did she know, Karen Woodson was already plotting her next move, determined to avoid the consequences of her actions at all costs. Back in the interrogation room, Karen sat fuming, her mind racing with schemes to evade the charges against her. She knew she couldn't simply accept defeat. Her reputation and standing in the community were at stake. Suddenly, an idea took root, and a sly grin spread across her face. Summoning the officer, she cleared her throat, her tone dripping with false remorse. "Look, I know I made a mistake back there. I shouldn't have reacted the way I did, but that dog was causing a real disturbance in my neighborhood. I was just trying to protect my home and my property." Officer Daniels eyed her skeptically, his arms crossed over his chest. "That's no excuse for assaulting a service animal, Mrs. Woodson. The law is clear on this." Karen nodded, feigning contrition. "I understand, and I'm truly sorry. But is there any way we can, work something out? Maybe we could avoid all the legal hassle and find a more, reasonable solution." Daniel's brow furrowed, sensing the underlying manipulation in her words. "I'm afraid that's not how this works, ma'am. You committed a federal offense, and we have a responsibility to see this through properly." Karen leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Look, I'm a respected member of this community. Surely we can find a way to make this all go away quietly. I'm sure we could come to some sort of arrangement." The officer's expression hardened, and he shook his head firmly. "Mrs. Woodson, I'm going to have to stop you right there. Attempting to bribe or influence a police officer is a very serious crime. I suggest you let your lawyer handle this from here on out." Frustrated, Karen slumped back in her chair, her fingers drumming on the table. "Fine. Have it your way. But mark my words, this isn't the last you've heard of me." As the officer left the room, Karen's mind whirred with new schemes. She couldn't allow this to ruin her reputation or her standing in the community. Pulling out her phone, she began furiously typing, her fingers flying across the screen. "Time to pull out the big guns," she muttered, a vindictive gleam in her eye. She was determined to fight this battle on her own terms, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Emily waited anxiously outside, her service dog by her side. She knew the legal battle was just beginning, but she was prepared to do whatever it took to ensure justice was served. In the days that followed, the case against Karen Woodson continued to make its way through the legal system. Emily had retained an experienced civil rights attorney who wasted no time in filing a federal lawsuit against Karen and the HOA she served on. This is a clear-cut case of discrimination and violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The attorney, Sarah Finley, told Emily, "We have a strong case, and I'm confident we can hold Mrs. Woodson and the HOA accountable." Emily nodded, her expression resolute. "Good. Karen Woodson needs to learn that she can't just abuse her power and get away with it. This has to stop, for the sake of everyone in our community." As the legal proceedings got underway, it quickly became apparent that Karen was pulling out all the stops to defend herself. She had hired a high-powered criminal defense attorney who immediately began filing a barrage of motions and appeals. Mrs. Woodson is claiming that the service dog was a nuisance and that she was acting to protect her property and the neighborhood. Sarah explained to Emily, "It's a desperate attempt to avoid the consequences of her actions." Emily's eyes narrowed, her hands clenching into fists. That's ridiculous. Pepper spraying a service animal is never justified, no matter what the excuse. Karen is just trying to manipulate the system. Sarah nodded solemnly. Unfortunately, that's exactly what she's doing, but we're prepared to fight this every step of the way. We'll demonstrate that her actions were not only illegal, but also blatantly discriminatory. As the legal battle intensified, Karen's tactics grew increasingly underhanded. She began rallying her fellow HOA members, painting herself as the victim of an overzealous neighbor and her aggressive service dog. "This is our community, and we can't allow these kinds of disruptive elements to take over," Karen proclaimed at a heated HOA meeting, her voice dripping with false concern. "We need to stand up and defend our neighborhood, no matter the cost." The other HOA members, many of whom were loyal to Karen, nodded in agreement, their expressions hardening with resolve. Emily watched from the sidelines, her heart sinking as she realized the uphill battle she was facing. "They're trying to turn this into a war," she confided to Sarah, her voice laced with frustration. "Karen is using her position on the HOA to rally support and undermine my case." Sarah's brow furrowed, her eyes narrowing with determination. "Then we'll have to be ready for a fight. This is about more than just one incident. It's about defending the rights of the disabled and standing up to abuse of power. We're not going to back down, no matter how dirty Karen plays." The stage was set for a bitter and drawn-out legal battle, with both sides determined to emerge victorious. Emily knew the stakes were high, but she was more resolute than ever to see justice prevail. As the legal proceedings dragged on, the tension in the neighborhood continued to escalate. Karen Woodson had successfully rallied a sizable contingent of her fellow HOA members to her cause, painting Emily and her service dog as disruptive outsiders. During a heated HOA meeting, Karen took the floor, her voice dripping with false concern. "Our community has always been a peaceful, welcoming place. But now, we're faced with a situation that threatens to tear us apart. This woman and her aggressive dog are trying to force their way into our neighborhood, and we simply can't allow that." The gathered HOA members murmured in agreement, their expressions hardening with resolve. Emily sat in the back of the room, her stomach churning with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "This is ridiculous," she muttered to her attorney Sarah. "Karen is twisting the facts to make us sound like the villains. We're the ones who were attacked, for heaven's sake." Sarah placed a reassuring hand on Emily's arm. "I know, but remember, this is exactly the kind of tactic we've been expecting. Karen is trying to turn the community against you, but we're prepared to counter her every move." As the meeting progressed, Karen continued to stoke the flames of fear and resentment. "This isn't just about one incident," she declared, her eyes sweeping the room. "It's about protecting our way of life, our property values, and the very fabric of our community. We can't let these kinds of disruptive elements take over. Emily clenched her fists, her nails digging into the palms of her hands. She's painting me and my dog as the enemy when we're the ones who were wronged. This is so unfair. Sarah squeezed Emily's arm reassuringly. Stay strong, Emily. We'll have our chance to set the record straight in court. Right now, the best thing you can do is to remain calm and focused. Don't let Karen's tactics get to you. As the meeting drew to a close, Karen's supporters erupted in thunderous applause, their cheers echoing through the room. Emily felt her heart sink, realizing the uphill battle she now faced. This is going to be a long and bitter fight, she murmured to Sarah, her eyes filled with determination. But I'm not backing down. Karen Woodson is going to pay for what she did, no matter what it takes. Sarah nodded, her expression resolute. That's the spirit, Emily. We'll fight this every step of the way, and we'll make sure justice is served. This isn't over by a long shot. The stage was set for a showdown, with both sides digging in for a drawn-out legal battle that would test the limits of their resolve and the strength of their convictions. As the legal battle raged on, Emily and her attorney, Sarah, continued to fight tirelessly against Karen's relentless campaign of misinformation and intimidation. The HOA's concerted efforts to turn the community against them had proved to be a formidable challenge, but they remained undaunted. In the courtroom, Sarah expertly dismantled Karen's claims, presenting irrefutable evidence of the assault on Emily's service dog. She meticulously laid out the clear violations of federal law, leaving no room for doubt. Mrs. Woodson's actions were not only illegal, but they were a blatant act of discrimination against a person with a disability, Sarah argued, her voice ringing with conviction. The law is unambiguous, and we will not allow her to escape the consequences of her actions. Karen's attorney, a seasoned and ruthless legal strategist, fought back with equal tenacity. He argued that the service dog had been a disruptive presence in the neighborhood, and that Karen had acted to protect her property and the community. My client is a respected member of this community, and she should not be punished for defending her home and her way of life, the attorney claimed, his tone dripping with condescension. However, Sarah's meticulous preparation and unwavering commitment to the case proved to be a formidable match for the opposition. She methodically dismantled each of Karen's claims, highlighting the stark contrast between the law and the HOA's attempts to justify the indefensible. As the trial progressed, the judge's expression grew increasingly grim, signaling that the weight of the evidence was firmly on Emily's side. Karen's supporters in the HOA began to waver, their confidence shaken by the overwhelming case against their champion. In a dramatic climax, the judge delivered his ruling, his voice clear and unwavering. Mrs. Woodson's actions were a clear violation of federal law, and her attempt to use her position within the HOA to rally support and undermine the rights of a person with a disability is completely unacceptable. The court finds her guilty on all charges and orders the HOA to pay significant damages to the plaintiff. A hush fell over the courtroom as Karen's face contorted with rage and humiliation. Emily, tears of relief streaming down her cheeks, embraced her service dog, who had been the unwitting victim of Karen's callous disregard for the law. As the community grappled with the fallout from the trial, it became clear that Karen's influence and power within the HOA had been irreparably damaged. The precedent set by the case would serve as a warning to others who might dare to abuse their authority and trample on the rights of the disabled. For Emily, the victory was bittersweet, but it represented a hard-won triumph against the forces of entitlement and injustice. She knew that her fight had not been just for herself, but for all those who had suffered under the tyranny of HOA Karens, like Karen Woodson. The road ahead might still be long, but she was more determined than ever to stand up for what was right.